I want to show you today the core skill that every single colour pencil artist needs to know and needs to practice. If you find that your coloured pencil drawings are looking kind of scratchy, this will be the thing you need to practice. This will be why. So let's go through these steps. I'll show you what you need to learn, what these skills are, and then later in the video we can look at applying it to an actual drawing. So before you get started with the skills, it's important to understand how coloured pencil drawings work, how the colour gets built up. And coloured pencil drawings are created through something called layering. This is where you build up the pencils gradually in a series of light layers rather than just pressing really hard with the pencil and blocking in each colour. Building up these layers gradually enables the colours to mix together and create really lovely smooth transitions from one colour to another. It is so important to layer the coloured pencils. You'll hear me talk about this a lot in all of my videos. So the skills to learn is basically how to apply the pencil effectively in order to layer. Now, in order to layer effectively, you need to be able to put down the pencil really nice and lightly. As I mentioned, you don't just want to press hard. The best way to do this is to hold the pencil quite far down the barrel. You don't want to be doing it generally really close to the tip. Practice holding it like this. What this will do is literally stop you from being able to press too hard. If I have a really short pencil that's quite close to the end of its life, or even kind of a middle-sized pencil, I tend to use something called a pencil extender, which just screws onto the end of my pencil, which means I can still hold it further back, even though it's just a small pencil. Once you're holding the pencil correctly, you now want to practice circular motions. So again, I talk about this so often in my videos, but let's really go through what I'm thinking here. Because if you're going to apply a really smooth layer of pencil in order to build up all of those layers, you need to master this. So you'll see that I am using that light pressure and creating kind of circular or oval motions really lightly with the pencil, going over itself over and over again, generally over the patch. And this will help the pencil go down consistently. I think it's sometimes tempting to either press hard or to kind of scribble a little bit. But if you want to create these light layers and really smooth color, you have to have a certain amount of patience to just lightly build up this pencil over and over again. And you can see I continue doing this, and eventually it starts to make a really nice and solid, soft block of color. Now, as you're applying this color in these light circular motions, holding the pencil far back, there is one more thing that you need to be thinking about, and that is how often you're sharpening your pencil. Now, I think sometimes, particularly when building up the color repeatedly over a reasonably long period of time, it's tempting to let the pencil get blunt and just try and shade like that. But actually, it makes a massive difference to the pencil how sharp it is. I can't stress enough how important it is to frequently sharpen the pencil. Look at the difference in these swatches between a blunt pencil and a sharp pencil. The blunt pencil is just looking a little bit patchy. It's not looking as nice and smooth in comparison to that really nice sharp pencil. So I always start with a sharp pencil and frequently sharpen it throughout the process. Now, please do click the like button if you're finding this video helpful, and press subscribe and the bell to be notified about all of my new videos. So now that we've gone through building up the pencil with circular motions, using a light pressure and working with a sharp pencil, let's think about how we can use these techniques into an actual drawing. Let's think about how it applies to this lovely colourful train. Now, this train is made of wood. It does have very smooth surfaces. It also has some light areas, some darker areas, and we need to make really nice and smooth gradients from those lighter colours to the darker colours. So let's see how applying the pencil in this way is so important for this train. Now, if you do want to go through this train with me in a lot more detail, I do have the full tutorial available on my website. In fact, I have not only this tutorial, but loads of other tutorials in a huge variety of different subject matters. For each and every tutorial that I create, I include really in-depth instructions, all of the real-time footage, detailed details of all of the colors that I'm using, the sketch outlines in both a light sketch so that you can print it directly onto your drawing paper and a darker sketch if you want to trace it. And I include the reference photos for every drawing. Every tutorial is really neatly broken down into chapters so you can work through them in bite-sized pieces. I have some very beginner-friendly tutorials and full courses to really help get you started with colored pencils. And I have some much more complicated drawings but have a lot more wow factor. Check out the link in the description. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I want to build this train up by building a series of light layers. And I generally like to start from the lighter colors and work my way towards the darker colors. So you can see me working with my sharp pencil, holding it further back and working in circular motions here, looking at the lightest color on the engine of the train. I can then do exactly the same for the lightest colors in all of the other areas. So for example, the very light areas of red, so that is pink on these little light patches. And I can build up a really light green with a really light pressure, circular motions, and a sharp pencil on the lightest green areas. Now you will notice here I'm holding the pencil a little bit closer to the tip. That's because I need to have a bit more control over where the pencil's going, and I don't have as much control if I hold it really far back, but I'm also not holding it right close to the tip. So once I've filled in the lightest colors in each area, I can then gradually start working my way towards the darker colors. So I'm using still a very light blue, but it's slightly darker than that first blue, working in these circular motions once again and pressing nice and lightly to block in this color as nice and smoothly as I can. And I'll do that in every area of the light blue before again using this light pressure and circular motions to block in the next darkest color. And I do that for every color, working from lightest to darkest. So I focused on the blue first. Now I can focus on working from light to dark on the red areas. And then I can do exactly the same on the yellow areas and the green. And then quite quickly, I have something that looks like a train. It's obviously not looking very realistic right now, but I have built up all of this color really lovely and smoothly. It's not looking scratchy. It's obviously not right now looking like solid blocks of color, but we will get there. And then from here, I really just continue building up that light and smooth color using those same techniques over and over again to gradually build up all of that vibrancy and all of those shapes. And I get to the point where I'm starting to get to quite dark colors. I'm starting now to add in a pretty dark brown to begin to get that contrast looking right, but still working in circular motions, still working smoothly. And then once I've worked my way all the way up to that darkest color, what I can then do is continue with the same method but work down towards the lighter colors. And gradually, the more color that I build up, the more that I create this nice and smooth color. Now, it may seem obvious that for a drawing that has really smooth blocks of color like this wooden train, that we would need to build up the color smoothly. But actually the same applies for animals, for example. This little mouse has a lot of texture to all of its fur, but I still start off by building up the pencil lightly, smoothly, and in circular motions, before then adding the fur texture and then adding more of the pencil lightly and smoothly. So it is honestly the key skill that I use in absolutely every drawing. And if you're creating drawings that look a little bit scratchy, this will be why this will be the skill that you need to practice. Now, I do hope that you found this video helpful. Do remember to click the subscribe button to be notified about my future tutorials. And if you want to go through the train or the mouse in a lot more detail, it is available on my website. Now, if you're still a bit unclear on layering and how that's supposed to look, check out this video here where I go through it in a lot more detail, specifically that layering process. Happy drawing, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.